All right, my name is Joseph Graham Jr. I'm originally from New Jersey, but proudly living here in North Carolina. I am the Faith and Wellness Program Facilitator for Living Waters Incorporated, but I'm also a professor at UNC Charlotte, and most proudly the pastor of Road to Damascus Christian Church, a faith and wellness ministry. A safe space is a no judgment zone. And it's a place where not only am I not being judged, but I'm being supported. And I believe that it's very important for young people to not only come into the space and know they're not going to be judged, but know that the things that they communicate is going to yield support and advocacy from the people that they're sharing their world with. The best thing that counselors, parents, and anyone can do is to be vulnerable about their own need for mental health wellness, because there's something that unlocks when young people see adults being real and honest about their own trials and tribulations and struggles. Because see, young people are going to follow what you do more than what you say. So you can't tell the young people, be open, tell me what you're going through, and they watch you become a master at hiding and shielding your own struggles. Especially if you're a parent or aunt and uncle that spend a lot of time around young people, they know what you're not being honest about. And so oftentimes we've trained them not to really address their stuff because we're not. So when adults can be honest and say to young people, this is where I struggle, and this is how I go to counseling, and this is how I seek support, now you're going to get their attention. When adults say, these are the challenges I had when I was a teenager, or this is something as an adult I'm dealing with. I'm struggling with anxiety. I'm battling with grief. I'm dealing with depression. And sharing that with a young person, and then saying, if you find yourself, and then sharing what they've done to try to find help, and then say, if you're struggling, you're not by yourself, I'm there with you. More times often than not, young people feel disconnected from adults because adults spend a lot of times presenting a persona to them instead of revealing the humanity of who I am. Because no matter what the age, race, nationality, or religious affiliation, when you can show me that your humanity connects to my humanity, now we can talk regardless of what our demographic differences are. It's important for young people to express out loud what their challenges are with mental health, is because real and metaphoric murder happens in silence. We kill our will to live when we are not open and honest about what we're struggling with. And so there's so much that goes on when in silence, Doc, that just think about a gun. When they put a silence on a gun, it does not change the potency of the bullet. And when you think about how we're so tall, don't say nothing, be quiet. But the silence does not change or alter the pain of the trauma that someone is going through that's not being spoken. And so it's important for children to say out loud what they're going through, because it could save their life. And watch this. It's important for them to say it out loud because one of my favorite phrases is, the skeletons in the closets of our parents become the imaginary friends that their children play with. And see, adults sometimes walk around believing that they have successfully hid their trauma until it shows up in their sons and their daughters' lives. And then sometimes, because we as adults are not ready to be honest, we'll look like, where'd they get that from? Why are they struggling with that? It came straight from your closet. The residue of unfinished and unhealed trauma will try to attach itself to your loved ones, especially your children. So when the children say these things out loud, not only is it becomes a lifeline for them that they're throwing out, but also reminds the adults in their life, let me now be real about what I got going on so we can both heal together. It'll actually, though it may feel like a bad thing, it's actually an opportunity to bring togetherness, because both the adult and the child realizes we're actually in this together. We've been living in silos, battling, alone in our rooms, but now we can come together because we can't conquer what we don't confront. So let's confront it together. We got to remember our own story and give young people the opportunity to live and breathe some things they're going to have to learn through experience. But what we do is we still speak wisdom to help them, but realize that some things are going to happen through discovery. And see that also, it awakens the fact that we as adults try to also control the narrative. And sometimes when we try to operate in control situations, the opposite ends up happening. And you realize that, I don't know what people's faith background may be, but God is in control. The best you can do is navigate the people who are in your life. And I'm going to tell you something, that transparency gets underestimated. When a person can share what they're going through, even if they don't catch the revelation in that moment, when they run into something that's similar to the story you just shared, you've given them hope to come out of it and a few clues on how to get over it and beyond it or through it. But when you act like you ain't never been through nothing, when you act like you have never struggled, then you actually present yourself as somebody that cannot help them. And we don't realize our vulnerability is the key to them listening. That's what's going to make them listen. How can adults be comfortable with scary conversations with young people? I believe that those adults first must get comfortable with the truth about their own childhood experiences. And discovering or be okay with realizing you may need to go and talk with someone. See, there are adults that need counseling and are not going. And what we find out is the more that adults can come to grips with challenges that they may not have effectively worked through from their childhood, it actually gives them that necessary fortitude to listen to the current generation share what they're going through as children. Because see, if you as an adult are still picking and choosing what parts of your childhood you want to be honest about, then yeah, it's going to definitely be scary, because you don't know when that child's going to say something triggering for you. But when you have made a practice of trying to work through things, not only does it better prepare you for what this generation of young people may tell you, but it actually also gives you some tools you can provide to them to support. And like I said a few moments ago, that healing may need to happen together. As a man, I grew up not believing that I'm supposed to go to any mental health counselor. As a black man, I felt like that was white people's stuff. And as a religious man, Jesus paid it all. I trust Jesus, not no counselor, right? But when my mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, given 3 months to live, father passed a year and a half later, faced divorce and all that comes with that. I'm unhealthy, pushing 300 pounds, high blood pressure, hypertension, flirting with diabetes and all kind of problems. Doctor said, if you don't do something, you're not going to walk your daughters down the aisle. And went to mental health counseling. Not only did it save my life, because not only did it put me on a path for mental health wellness, but a complete physical wellness, but it actually strengthened my relationship with God, because there's safety in a multitude of counsel. And the reality is, at the intersection of faith and mental health, I found breakthrough. But what took place at that intersection was I had to be more vulnerable than I had ever been willing to be, and say, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I'm angry about. This is what I'm sad about. And I had to deal with it. And, we sometimes got more religion than we have relationship with God. And when we really look at the word and not religious rhetoric, Jesus talks about suffer not the little children to come. And how does he tell us to be? Think about it. We sometimes get caught up in the titles that we get in church: apostles, pastors, prophets, evangelists, and teachers, and so on and so forth. This person's anointed. The greatest title we could ever be given is to be a vessel of God. And the greatest way that Jesus tells us to show up is as what? Children. Think about that. He talks about entering the kingdom of God. You must be like a child, which means that our children is by whether they know it or not or consciously doing it or not. Their level of just blurting out what they're dealing with, their problems just oozing out of them. God is saying that's the same way I need you to come. Oftentimes we struggle because our children remind us of how unopen we've become in being religious. And so churches need to first, the adults need to be honest and say, let me truly lay my burdens down before the Lord. There was a time, man, in the old church when the people used to get up and testify and say what they were battling and say what they were going through. And watch this. There was always at least 2 to 10 other people going through the same thing. They may not get up and do the same testimony, but that one person getting up and sharing what they were going through just set a whole bunch of people free, because we don't live life in a vacuum and you're not by yourself. And so the church need to get back to that testimony service. Sometimes we're so busy trying to present how anointed and blessed we are that we don't show how delivered God had to, what God had to deliver us from. That's the power. When the church can say in front of one another as adults and to our young people, this is what I'm battling with, man, you're gonna see the walls of the church not have enough room to keep the young people, because the young people gonna recognize that it's safe. Because if you can be honest, then I can be honest. When the church begins to allow the adults to be free, the children will be too. What's really important for our generation, adults, is to realize, see, when I was younger, if you did something embarrassing, whoever was there knew about it, and that rumor may, grow a bunch of legs. But that is and it may haunt you forever when you get around a certain group. But we're living in a time where if a child says something, does something, or has something said to them or done to them, or they're not even present, but somebody says something about them, it is now recorded and able to be watched ad nauseum on repeat for eternity. We don't understand that kind of digital peer pressure, virtual bullying. We have no concept of what it's like that any given moment of time, the wrong move and something is going to be thrown out there forever scar you. And now the trauma that you have to continuously go through at rapid fire because it's everywhere. So naturally, when young people are going through a hard time because they're living in a world like that, it makes it even that much more important for them to share what they're going through, to get it out there, sometimes for their own level of sanity and freedom, but also sometimes to explain what is happening to them and why they may have said or done something, or may not have done something. For example, I was with some young people the other week and we were talking, and one of them was sharing how, it's common amongst young people that if somebody says, yo, man, I wasn't at school last week because my aunt died. And the first reaction, and they even demonstrated it in the room, is young people laugh. Now, on the outside looking in, my generation, we immediately were going, you don't laugh, that's wrong. And we would judge them. But a more mature, observant individual would say, this is a defense mechanism happening amongst young people who in a lot of ways devoid of social interaction and honestly, awkwardly don't know exactly how to respond. So chuckling is a defense mechanism. It's not that they honestly find it funny. It's simply because of the awkwardness of not knowing what to say and do. Y'all follow what I'm saying? And an uninformed adult going off and yelling, y'all need to be, y'all so insensitive, this and that, you done lost the whole room because you're judging them based upon your misunderstanding of generational comprehension of what's happening. And then they begin to share with themselves because he actually said it and then they actually did it. But later on we talked and they're like, it's not that I think it's, I just don't know what to say. Don't know what to do. And so I just say that to say that's why it's important that when young people are talking, just to listen to what the Bible says, be slow to speak and swift to hear. And sometimes we adults forget that ain't just between adults. That's when anybody's talking. And if you're going to reach this generation, you got to listen to them. The hopes that myself and the leadership at Living Waters Inc. has regarding this 2024 Youth Mental Wellness Summit, and our motto being creating safe spaces for young voices to be heard. That encompasses the goal, or a strong part of what the goal. Number one, that this is a safe space. And we got to understand, we can't underestimate what we mean by that. We live in a time period where young people are often and regularly in unsafe spaces. That's why saying that we're creating a safe space is important. You realize that, just like you were saying, if I have a church that don't want young people to talk about certain stuff, if I'm at a school that spends more time penalizing me or already prejudging me, or if my own peers lack a certain level of sympathy toward one another and we all putting up fronts for all kind of reasons, then that ain't safe. You follow what I'm saying? We underestimate how unsafe it is for a young person to be living in their own skin. So one goal is that we actually have a safe space for them to be, and just be. 2 letters, be, to just be. Secondly, the goal is for them to talk. When I think about this event and think about it in terms of visions of success, is hearing young people talking more than all the adults, including me, in this space. And when I say talking, what they like, what they don't like, and what they think will work. That's what we want. Them sharing and talking. And here's the third piece, because this is the piece that really matters and what I want the young people to believe when they're in that space. And that is, we're going to move from this event into next steps to respond to what you've said and put solutions into action. That is what it looks like, bro. That is what we desire. Research shows, because I'm not a clinician, but research shows that the average young person spends 3.5 hours on social media platforms. But research also shows that any youth that spends more than 3.5 hours is gonna battle with depression more than anybody else. It also shows, when we look at like stuff like Instagram, that it's especially bad for young girls. 1 out of 3 young ladies battle with body shaming just because of Instagram. And so when we start talking about peer pressure, or when we start talking about social media, these things are almost one and the same, because social media amplifies whatever pressures peers put on one another. And so when you put school in the mix, I mean, how focused can a person be with the school lesson if they're trying to keep track of what social media is or is not saying about them? You follow what I'm saying? Like, and so, and a lot of times, to me, school could improve how to incorporate our understanding of social media. I was talking to some young people the other day. They say they have classes teaching people how social media works, but they don't have classes breaking down the statistics that I'm talking to you about. You follow what I'm saying? That needs to be incorporated. Mental health, wellness, tactics, strategies, and methods need to be a part of the education that our young people are getting. It shouldn't be something sometimes inserted. It should be mandatory. Because we ain't even got to talk about how social media has destroyed some families amongst adults. So if grown folks have had some calamities happen in their personal life over social media, what do you think folks whose brains are still maturing, folks who are still developing, right? What are they going to do with that same information? Meanwhile, how many times have we sat at a dinner table at home and you've got to tell everybody, including the adults, to put their devices down so we can at least say a prayer together before we break bread and eat? These are the realities. Our young people, we're living in a generation where we don't quite, and even adults too, don't know the difference between attention and intentions. And so because of likes and comments and followers and so on and so forth, people think that folks have good intentions toward them because they're getting attention, only to discover that friends and followers don't mean confidants and trustworthy partners and companions. You follow what I'm saying? And we live in a world where, strange, as weird as it sounds, but it's real, those lines have been blurred. And so now, instead of people posting things to reveal their life, people trying to keep up with what they're posting. And so it's important for us to educate ourselves and be honest about the impact that has happened. It goes back, when adults are honest about how social media can mess up a person's life, then the young people can be honest. But if all adults want to say is, y'all need to get off of that mess, y'all need to leave that stuff alone. Back in my day, you done lost the room. But when you can share the realities of it, now we can get honest. The one thing about truth, right? Because people talk about my truth, his truth. The one thing about truth is it always stands the test of time. Whether we're talking about an era where we're dealing with digital devices or not, vulnerability and honesty between two human beings still is the best way to make a connection. This event is not just for middle school and for high school, that we are sincerely inviting all college students into this space as well. So if you belong to a student organization of any kind, we want them to come into that space. They can come in just as a student, joining the space to talk. But if that student belongs to an organization, they can come in as an organization and represent well, too. And we're still inviting people who have youth servicing programs, or they're a youth servicing organization. Contact us. Listen, I'm Pastor Joseph Graham Jr., the Faith and Wellness Program Facilitator at Living Waters. Please go to livingwatersfa.com and register for this event. Share the link with everybody that you know. We want to invite everybody into this space so that we can do what's best for the mental wellness of our young people.